use this here substitute Bowie knife anytime I think we need some David Bowie input in this video. This is the title track from the film Cat People, 1981. It peaked at #1 in New Zealand and held its place for 3 weeks. It's very William Blake, Tiger meets David Bowie, and you get this song. It's key to interpreting the film, and you need a few helping hands. Watching the trailer, listening to the antagonist rant is always a good way to figure out what's going on. So since no one's even come up with a bad interpretation, as far as I can see, for what this film's about, I'm going to do at least that. What it's really about is the primal nature of humans, men and women. It's an ancient, primal, going back to prehistory, before humans were humans. It's about mammals even. How a sexually dimorphic species can cohabitate. David Bowie cue. Now, when I read Dawkins as a teenager, I called it the DNA rat race, this DNA vying for supremacy, beating each other, racing to the top, trying to evolve things like brains and teeth and tusks to improve and overthrow the other species of DNA or other manifestations of DNA. But that was to miss something that this film reminds us of, because it's not a DNA rat race in this film, it's a DNA cat race. And the cat has much more grandeur and majesty than a rat, and so does nature. There's so much more going on. It's a much more bleak sort of outlook to call it the rat race, but it gets so much that's essential correct. And here, if I haven't, I'll play it again if I already have, cue to David Bowie. I could stare for 1,000 years. It's not literally 1,000, it's millions of years. So the film is about these two primal entities, man and woman. On the one hand, you've got the primal drive of our nature, the rational, the orderly, the measured, the deliberate, the cerebral cortex, the monkey brain expansion pack. And then on the other, you've got this very primal, rip you to shreds, brutal part. Now, Ranger Bill and Superman's mom here represent the civilized, orderly parts. They wear uniforms, they catch and contain the beasts. They also enter the film later, just as humans appear later along the evolutionary timeline. So McDowell is the primal part for male, Kinski the primal part for female, but she's in transition from being civilized and innocent to becoming this primal part. And naturally, McDowell has this big clash with Ranger Bill, as I call him. Proper name is Oliver Yates, the character. And of course they have to clash because they're the unintegrated male. There's two sides, they're not getting together, they're oppositional, so they fight it out. Now briefly, Bill has to step out and Joe comes in, average Joe as I call him, steps in, subs in, and you can see that he's the civilized part. He's got the tools, he's got the cage, he's got the uniform, and what happens in this fight, so it's a good thing Oliver stepped out potentially, is average Joe, he gets ripped to shreds. I don't know if anyone else, I think it's clever to point out, his opposable thumb is torn off, his whole arm is torn off by McDowell's character. I think average Joe is a good clue. I don't think it's an accident that he's called Joe. I've given some thought to Oliver Yates. I don't know, that could be all of her hates, all of her gates, because perhaps Oliver's the one who tries to put up gates, tries to put up boundaries to hold back the primal because he's this ranger character. And McDowell, on the other hand, he rips gates off. He rips whole arms off. He's there to smash things down. So, in the witnessing, in sight of the two women, round one goes to the primal. McDowell's character tears the uniformed average Joe to pieces. Another clue about names maybe is the last name for McDowell and his sister Irina, who does a great job of acting this transitional figure between the innocent to the primal. Their name is Gallia. Gallier, I believe. Yep. And that's German for gall. I don't speak German, but I looked it up for some reason. the word is Gaul, and that reminds me of the barbarian hordes, the primal barbarian hordes coming to attack the Romans. And to quote Durant, around every Rome hovers the Gauls, around every Athens some Macedon. And that backs up my idea here that these two represent barbaric humanity, threatening animosity towards civilized humanity. You've got to wonder how much the screenwriter is being subliminal and how much they knew about what they were doing with the lyrics in the story. I don't know. So this is Alice Perrin, and the more Kinski's character embraces her cat side, the more we see of Alice Perrin in this film. She's taking up the civilized ground that Kinski is giving up. It's like a sliding scale throughout the film. Alice's name might mean Alice in Wonderland, peering, Alice Perrin, peering into the rabbit hole of the primal wonderland of the cat people. Only in the very end does she get real screen time. By then she's been actively terrorized by the other them, chased possibly through the jungle and dominated in the unconsciousness/swimming pool. Earlier on though, she was the spunky one, bashing cash registers and sorting out children that Kinski was fairly clueless about. And she was the one who got right to the point in the bar about Kinski's virginity. So this film is a 1981 remake, actually, of a 1940s film, which I've not seen and don't seem to have access to. It's funny to think that the 1940s were as far away back then as the 80s are to us right now. So it's certainly time for a remake of Cat People. And I've got a few suggestions later about how that ought to go. But it would be very interesting to see how this 1940s one's measuring up. Like there's that pool scene, and a lot of the characters and their names have been retained. So there's something that somebody knows or feels is a continuation of how things started out. Now, I didn't spend a lot of time, I just watched this film one time 2 years ago, and I haven't thought more deeply, but would like to, about John Larroquette's character. What's his name? Bronte Judson. I'm not quite sure what that's all about. I got the sense that it might be to do with the Bronte sisters from English literature, and perhaps that, I think the director or something, I think I looked it up on Wikipedia. I got some sense that the screenwriter or the director had worked with those characters before and told their story, so they wrote this in somehow. The interesting thing about this, John Larroquette, I don't know what he was like in the 80s. I thought he was a big deal. So to give such a tiny part to someone who's a big deal, everything in a movie means something. So it means something, and it means something that he said to Oliver Yates, you should kill the cat. He was suggesting it or hinting at it, or did he directly say it? I don't know. Can't remember. According to 2015 notes, he talked it over at the very least, or inquired about killing the McDowell character. But Ranger Bill, he is not going to have that. He needs to integrate his manhood. He's not going to cut it off and chop it off. That's what I interpret by his resistance or refusal to kill the cat. Now, and also, if he were to do that, he wouldn't be able to mate with the primal female on equal terms either. So he's not going to kill the cat. And then we're coming into this dream sequence. Now, as I say, the antagonists often have a nice rant and tell you all the juicy secrets and no one's listening because they're the bad guys, so it's obviously bad stuff. Think of Red Skull in the Captain America movie, and he's saying all this great anarchist stuff about there will be no flags, and nobody's going to listen to him because he's the bad guy. He's trying to blow up New York or something on this plane, and we're all the Captain America. So McDowell's a bit like that. He's a bad guy, but he's telling the truth. He's the guy who seems to understand what's really going on here, and he's willing to put it out there and state the problem and offer his solution. So we have solution number one. And it's also my first clue that Alice Perrin was an important character, because otherwise she just seems so background. But the fact that she's being talked about by someone important like McDowell, I realised, wait a minute, you better pay a bit more attention to Alice's character. So he mentions her by name. He says that Yates doesn't want Kinski, he wants the cat. The primal draws him out, scares him. He's mistaking fear for love. McDowell doesn't consider true self and primal drive possible to reconcile. That's his problem. He's sure there's cat people, there's primitive, there's barbarism, and there's the civilized, and never the twain shall meet. So his solution is to keep living this life and for her to cross over, be with him, make love with me, he says. And that's supposed to solve the problem. And maybe he's right. So to give the Bowie knife its moment, this is the lyric that backs that one up. Judgment made can never bend, tears can never dry, cannot be reconciled is the main point there, apart from the long time period. So the Catman, he's the guy who understands the primal and civilized dichotomy here and the lack of synthesis. Thinks he's got it all worked out. He says that Kinski should give up Yeats, don't go back to him. Shield's only going to end up hurting him. So there's a little bit of sympathy there. Just be still with me is basically what he's saying. Bring this nasty conflict to an end by surrendering, by joining with him in this sort of primal incestuous way. It's not really about incest between brother and sister. It's about the incest of the primal and the primal when there's supposed to be a balanced pairing, and it is just as incestuous, of course, for rational and rational to go together and to abandon the entire primal aspect to humanity, because, not to get into it too much, but our brains are built that way. You've got the primal inside, maybe you've got a turtle, then you've got reptile, and then on top there's this monkey beta expansion pack, and it all makes up to be the one human, and to abandon one is what McDowell's character is suggesting. Let's just go back to the primitive, things were just fine millions of years ago. Kinski isn't ready for things to be quite so bleak as that. Yeats engaging the cat in mistakes. Okay, so there's a bit about... McDowell's laying out what's going on. He's saying that Alice Perrin's character is interested in Yeats mistaking his attraction to the primal for courage and being attracted to him in turn. So he's just dismissing that petty nonsense, but at least he's got some insight into what's going on. Now, he's not particularly wrong, it's just that his solution is a bit bleak and too bleak for Kinski at this stage. Alright, so we hear a little bit about the horrible fate of McDowell if he doesn't have another panther, leopard, jaguar person to be with to end this nasty plight. So the recognition is what happens, this poor guy, he keeps on going through these phases like some kind of nasty Russian doll, that women are attracted to him and they don't know why and they don't have a choice, and they end up getting slaughtered as he goes from human to panther and then goes back to human again having killed someone, but then another woman, another panther, rip through a new one, sort of an episode. And it's a horrible existence that he wants to end. He's not enjoying this. He's not like some nasty vampire. He's got to find someone to pair off with to tame the primitive side. They sort of nullify each other. That's his solution. And there's another Bowie line about what happens to the women that he's with, that they don't know his name, they don't know who he is, they don't recognize him, they pull the blinds and change their minds. He sacrifices humans to the leopards of old and is keen as anyone to find an end to this end to the plague he calls a heartbeat. You wouldn't believe what I've been through, McDowell says. And he means to spare Kinski the same pain. He's had a solution to this eternal putting out fires with gasoline, which is to leave the Monkey Brain Expansion Pack tribe completely. Done with you, going back to the woods, thanks very much. I'm repeating myself because blah, blah, blah. Now, Alice has a solution as well, which is to slay the primal male. She does. Boom. Blows McDowell away. No longer a character in the movie. The civilized, tight-laced ranger woman shoots the cat. He's gone. So that's solution number 2. just kill the primal entirely. McDowell's Creole mother figure, she isn't full of bright ideas. "Where can I go?" Kinski asks. "It doesn't matter. He will have to live as he did," she is told. Yates' father figure doesn't get much input at all. I looked and I couldn't see that he even got a chance to say anything. He might have offered some advice, but no, he's killed and stuck up a tree, jaguar style, or leopard style, I think, properly speaking. So, so much for the older generation offering any solutions. As usual, they've got no bloody idea. What they did was just force things through, and the new generation is the inheritors of this age-old problem of how we're supposed to relate. So it was good of the movie to illustrate that. We've got a mother and we've got a father, and they don't know what the hell to do. So it's up to us to figure that one out. So the movie's laying out this problem, which is a modern problem as well as an ancient problem, but the ancient solution is no longer acceptable to us. It might be a good time to mention that marriage rates are plummeting. People are having divorces, children are being raised just by one mother or having mixed families. Marriage failure is huge these days, and I think people were perfectly aware of that back in the 80s when this film was made, and potentially they were already having hints of it back in the 40s, that there was some breakdown in civilization, and that's perhaps the start of where this movie idea came from. They had a sense of it because divorces are occurring. Now then, perhaps not least of all because they've got post-war times to deal with, so they've seen something that others didn't, which is families getting blown apart and recombining. Maybe. Arguably that's been going on the whole time. Anyway, McDowell gets blown away, and now Kinski goes full leopard, having killed the father figure, but she refrains from destroying Yates. She holds back, and nobody in the film capitalizes on what this could mean. This is an opportunity. The panther faces off against the civilized man and does not destroy him when she had the chance, nor did he destroy her. She just bolts away and ends up killing someone else, I think. But she doesn't kill him. That was the chance, that was the time. So a future version of this movie could make more of that moment and try and find some words, try and find some solution, try and find some sort of cohabitating, pairing off, pair bond resolution beyond what happens. So the civilized monkeys now hunt down the beast. The beast wipes out Yates' old man, as I say, sticks him up a tree. So we've got Kinski's solution, number 3, which is death. And she asks Yates to go ahead and kill her. But he refuses. Kinski has a backup plan, plan number 4, free me. Maybe surrender to the primal life and she'll just stay primal forever, what the heck. Maybe he can send her off to South America or something to live in the jungle. She probably thinks that he's cooperating with this plan, but what he does instead is he comes up with plan number 5, marriage. He marries her. How do they show marriage in this film? Well, the film closes with Yates and Alice romantically involved. You can pick that up, right? They're together now. Although Oliver looks really pale and to have lost his passion, which is how a lot of marriages go, the poor guy. He loses his mojo, he's whipped. And to look at how he behaves in that last scene, it looks like he is. Alice, on the other hand, she looks kind of smug. She looks very prim and school-marmish, matronly. I've got my guy, and now I can do what I like with him. She looks, I can understand why the Annette O'Toole, is it, was cast as Alice Perrin, because she does this very well. It's sort of like Nurse Ratched, but not quite that bad, from The One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So Yates is drawn to view Kinski in her cage. She's now locked up and contained by the institution of marriage. And he's not too happy, but he and the world are now safe. The panther, which is actually a painted cougar, I looked this one up. You can't train panthers apparently, but what you can do is train cougars, so you paint them black and make a movie. So presumably anyone who remakes this in 2020 is going to have to do that too. Oh no, not true, CGI. No problem. And frankly, now remember I said Kinski does this wonderful job of going from vulnerable, uninitiated girl into this primal, I'm going to get you character. And that's great, that's a highlight of the movie. But frankly, the cat does it better. And you see that in the closing scene as they play the Bowie music. This cat's looking mournful with big green blue eyes, blue actually, and then suddenly, at the right time for the film. And, for the music, it pairs off beautifully. And it's just that tranquility and innocence and maybe, sensitivity. And then suddenly it snaps. And that's, in a nutshell, exactly what Kinski does, and exactly, unfortunately, what a lot of people do, including women. And marriage is, especially a marriage of this kind, is a cage to contain this primal energy. So, if it isn't clear already that that's what's going on, keep listening. Yeah. See these tears so blue. I suppose I should play that with the Bowie knife.
See these tears so blue, an ageless heart.
Indeed, by 1981 our civilization had done no better than this in terms of marriage, in terms of pair bonding. And already the solution of caging up women in marriage was wearing very thin. Feminists were not going to have it. Check out this quote from, I've got this quote from John Bradshaw talking about, here's a case study. So there's a self-flagellating nun who beats herself up. He investigates her parents, and this is what she tells him. Severa's father was an alcoholic and a womanizer. Her mother was a devout Catholic and believed that a good and holy wife should suffer her husband's abuse in silence. So this woman was suffering and passed it on to her children. And that's her edict. That's what marriage is according to her Catholic upbringing. To suffer in silence, to be abused. And so that's unfortunately the solution that Yates and O'Toole come up with, or Alice come up with, and that's what's done to the Catwoman. She's married, she's contained, she's dissociated with, she's put away, disowned. That's the way people see marriage. And if you can't see a better template for a marriage, that's what you're stuck with. So a lot of people are shrugging it off. They don't want to do it. Understandable, especially think about this Catholic woman. She's stuck to it because, not because she's stupid, but because, like McDowell, she wanted to see an end of this primitivism. So that seems like an insane thing to put up with, to be in a horrible, confining, caging institution like marriage. I'm not saying this is all that marriage is, but that's a formulation of marriage. And why would you do it? Marriage is cat people solution number 5 to the problem of human society ripping itself apart. And it really does seem stupid, like democracy, until you remember all the other possibilities and how terrible they are. And it's the worst of a bad bunch. So unfortunately, ignorantly, though, the feminists want to uncage the female beast without a second thought for why it was ever there. At the same time, they're very particular about shooting dead the male beast at the slightest provocation, which is exactly what Alice does. So this is the problem. You've got to come up with a better solution than just get rid of marriage, because it's the dam that's holding back the tide that's going to kill us all. It's not the right colour, or it's not fair to everyone. So, look again with how really trigger-happy the feminists are. You sit with your thighs unclenched on the bus, it's called manspreading, and they go at you. They're very happy to be fueled by state power and taxpayer resources and run rampant, just like Alice in this movie, but with a great big gun. She's already got a pretty big gun, but, more industrial capital behind it entirely. Another way that's not offered by the film is, just in brief, to do what McDowell said, but not at the expense of our humanity, to not destroy the other side, but to find a way to not disown our parts, but everyone has a seat at the table, the primal synthesis with the rational, to be who we are. This is what is not being taught even in this film. I might as well say the Terminator films circle around the same theme. but instead of this dangerous female, you've got a dangerous male. So in the first film, you've got Arnie the psychopath, who's trying to kill Sarah Connor, hunt to kill. Then in the next film, Arnie is a husband and protector to Sarah. And then in the last film, it transitions into him being her father figure, Pops, which I anticipated before I'd seen the film because these notes are older than that. So you got that one right. So yeah, in the Terminator films, they couldn't show us a way for a man and a woman to pair bond up either. It just goes around these different solutions, which are not satisfactory. If my interpretation still doesn't seem right about the last scenes of Cat People, the crows are scaring the porcupine, they say, in the closing sequence. What do? You separate them, Mike says sadly, which is what's happened with him. He's separated. He's away from his loved one. He didn't synthesize, he didn't get together, they didn't solve the problem. They stuck the problem in a cage. Or actually, they didn't actually stick the problem in a cage. They blamed the problem on one party and stuck them in a cage. Also note that at the time, they're feeding a sick python, poor old thing. So what does it mean for the zookeepers to be tending a sick python? Basic Freudian analysis would suggest that poor old Ranger Bill has got problems with he's got erectile dysfunctions. His penis has had it and it's flopped on the operating table. And finally, check out Alice's new hairstyle. If you just look at her new hairstyle, she's got this enormous, big, placid ponytail that also looks like she's got the python, and poor old Mike doesn't anymore. So this is the sad solution that the film leaves us with, is that poor old guys have to surrender. They must die. The female primal side is safely tucked away in a cage. The civilized female gets to rule the roost and have a whipped husband. The male civilized side is miserable and sad and whipped and flaccid. And the male primal side, he got killed earlier on in the piece, blown away, dead, not even caged. Suggested that he be killed, and soon enough he was. And see what I mean? This is what's going on in the world with men and women. Anything else? Yeah, like I said, what we need for Cat People 3, which they won't call it. If Hollywood produces this one, it'll just be Cat People, or some other silly title. Hopefully they don't screw it up completely. But to show us a pair bond that works, show us that marriage that works, show us a solution that doesn't involve killing people, but the synthesis is that we're crying out for. That's what this film needs to show us. The marriage rate is down. The poorest families are the ones with solo parents, and to cap it off with, to understand why we're being shown this, if there were a 40 to 50% chance that your parachute was not going to open, would you jump out of a plane, or would you stay on board? Because 40 to 50% of marriages do fail. That's why people don't do it. And they understand that it's going to fail, and they also understand that the ones that don't fail are very often, as this film portrays, bloody awful. If you're a man, very bloody awful.